Yo, good morning, good morning, good morning. Freedom marchers, freedom lovers, freedom family, your freedom fighters. Snapzilla gorillas in the building. Hitting y'all with this live stream where this morning we're going to be talking about the continued situation, the continued genocide in Palestine and the Gaza Strip, but from the aspect of understanding what the IDF soldiers understand, which is essentially that this is indeed a genocide. Wow, what's all that banging and slanging? Anyway, it is September 3rd of 2025 on this Wednesday morning. And yeah, it's one of those days, y'all. One of those days. Anyway, so as you guys know, I told you guys before that the IDF has recalled or activated or sent out orders to 60,000 IDF reservists, meaning now these are IDF members who are not full active duty as we call it. They are reservists, right? So that means that they can hold down other jobs and, you know, they're not full-time soldiers. Now the IDF's recalled or activated 60,000 of them so that they can go ahead and invade the Gaza Strip full on. Tanya D, good morning to you. So Benjamin Nosferatu and the government of Israel wants to invade the Gaza Strip once and for all, take it completely over, and conquer Palestine, right? Because that's what their goal was in the first place. This hostage situation was just a happy accident for them. October 7th was a happy accident for them that they allowed. Well, it was an accident. They allowed it to happen. They knew it was going to happen. They had the intelligence informing them that it was going to happen, and it is what it is, right? And make no mistake about it. They don't really care if you know or not. That's how arrogant the Israeli government is. That's how arrogant Benjamin Nosferatu is. Okay, so we have to come to this understanding. Okay, and this is important because if the world allows Israel to do what they're doing in Palestine, well, who's going to stop any other government from doing the same thing? Realize. Salute to you. Good morning. I am feeling better. And yeah, another day. So here's the thing. The IDF is concerned about the idea or the fact that these reservists that they recalled or they activated will not show up for duty, right? They are concerned about it. The IDF brass is concerned about it because they know that these reservists and many other IDF soldiers, even active duty ones, know what's really going on in Palestine. They know what's going on. They know that this is not about rescuing hostages. They understand that. That's not what this is about. Because how many opportunities for ceasefires has Israel had with Palestine, with Hamas, right? Where they would receive hostages and get a ceasefire. They don't care about these hostages. What they care about, right, is conquering Palestine and taking it over and creating the huge state of Israel so that they can branch out in the entire Middle East and control the entire Middle East. And they're starting with the Gaza Strip. They're starting with Palestine. They don't want the Palestinians to have a country. They don't really care about that. And that's just the reality of it. Now, this is what IDF soldiers understand. In fact, one Israeli soldier said that unfortunately he has been in the Gaza Strip doing what he was ordered to do. And unfortunately, it's not about rescuing hostages. He understands what the goal is for Israel in Palestine, in the Gaza Strip. He understands that his government will go to any length, right? That they will kill children, they will destroy shelters, they will destroy aid stations, they will commit atrocities all over Palestine in order to conquer it, in order to take it over, because they feel like they're the chosen people and this is what they deserve. They don't really feel like that. It's really about power and control, and they're using that as a means of justification to continue the atrocities and not receive any blowback. Because what blowback have they received? They have not received any at all whatsoever. You know, people talk a little shit. Donald Trump might talk a little shit, but there's nothing he's going to do about it. Right? Good morning, Queen Mother Shakila. Salute to you. And this, again, is what these IDF soldiers understand. This is what the IDF in and of itself, the brass in the IDF, they understand that these reservists know what's really going on. They know what's really going on. And they do not want to assist them in the full-on continued genocide of the Palestinian people. And you know what they're saying? Oh, it's not genocide. This is what the IDF is saying. Oh, it's not genocide if we're giving the people of Gaza a fair warning. So because you're giving them fair warning that you're going to run up and through their homeland and take it by force, if they want to stick around and not be, if they want to stay in their home, if they want to stay in their homeland, because they want to stay, you think that is justification to run up in there and slaughter these people. Because the people of Gaza, the people of Palestine, do not want to give up their homeland. Because they want to fight, right, for their right to exist in the land they've existed in for centuries. You think it's justified because you told them that you were coming. Oh, well, we told them, so it's not genocide. Then what is it? Suicide? Is it suicide? Yes, Putin, the same thing. Putin, the same thing. But see, there's no difference between Benjamin Nosferatu and Putin, except Benjamin Nosferatu at the 7th. October 7th landed in his lap. What happened on October 7th? The attack from Hamas. He had that. Putin doesn't have that. Putin was straight up and down like, yeah, we just want to take over Ukraine. We want to absorb it back into the Soviet Union because it used to be before it got broken up. We want it back. We want to annex it once again. They annexed not Crimea, but they annexed Georgia, right? They annexed other parts of the Ukraine. Yeah, so they want to just take it over. At least they're not hiding it. But of course, Israel is going to hide it. They're going to use whatever talking points they can to justify what they're doing, even if it means killing women and children, non-combatants, people that are seeking aid, people that are seeking medical treatment from the wounds and stuff caused by this whole atrocity. Sean, salute. And if IDF soldiers understand it, if the IDF soldiers who have been in combat in Gaza, in the parts they have taken over, if they understand it, if the reservists understand what's really going on, why isn't the entire world doing something about it? Right? The same could be said for Ukraine, except in Ukraine, the Ukraine is receiving, you know, all kind of things from different countries, resources, weaponry, money, but no one is assisting Hamas. No one, these Palestinians. Salute to Story B, man. Good morning to you, brother. No one is aiding and assisting the Palestinians beyond giving them food and whatever else they need. They're not going to be allowed to, because Israel is the country committing these atrocities. This is what the IDF understands. This is what IDF soldiers understand. That's why they don't want to return. This is why the IDF soldiers that have been in Gaza doing what they're doing, this is why they're saying what they're saying. This is why they say they've been in Gaza and they really understand what's going on. They understand this is not about hostage rescue. Putin, Benjamin Nosferatu, has made it clear that the hostages being released will not stop him from doing what he's doing, because he wants to completely eradicate Hamas. He wants to wipe out the entire country. That's what he wants to do. The people. He wants to either push the people out, and if they stick around, they will be considered combatants. If the people of Gaza resist when the IDF invades, does this full-scale invasion of Gaza, they will be treated as combatants, armed or not. It's not going to matter. And who's going to stop? Who's going to stop Israel from doing this? Not a goddamn soul. I always tell you that these world leaders and the elites of the world, they will test us. They will test our resolve. They will test our intestinal fortitude to see how much we will allow to happen. How much atrocities can we get away with? What level of atrocity can we get away with? What scale? They will always do it, including with Modelo 19 pandemic. What happened during Modelo 19 was an atrocity. Our government committed multiple atrocities against us. They forced businesses to shut down, right? They forced kids to not have to go to school. They kept people in their homes. They made people desperate. They used and employed the Hegelian dialectic during the pandemic to see how we would respond. And how did we respond? Well, there was more drug use. There was more alcohol abuse. There was more spousal abuse. There was an uptick in suicides, particularly in children. Child suicide rates rose during the pandemic. Not because of the bug. The bug didn't cause that. It was how our government dealt with the pandemic, what they did in each state. In these states that they did all these shutdowns, they shut down businesses, they shut down schools, right? They kept kids locked in their homes. They kept parents locked in. We as human beings are not designed. We are not, we have not evolved to stay in the house all day while our government keeps watch over us and tells us what we can and cannot do. Agnes Fitz says, you're pathetic. You stand for grape. What are you talking about? I don't stand for any of that. I don't understand what that has to do with anything. What you're talking about. Insane Talk, NBA, NFL, Boxing More says, I'm here. Salute to you, brother. You feel like it was a social experiment. It was much more than that. The Modelo 19 pandemic was indeed an experiment. It was a social experiment, and they understand now what level of government overreach will accept. And listen, this whole thing, Donald Trump just said that he's about to send these the National Guard to Chicago. He has made his decision. That's going to be another experiment. But what's going on in Gaza right now? What's going on in Gaza? What Benjamin Nosferatu is doing? Well, that's an experiment for the world. But it's not an experiment for the people of Gaza. You understand? That is no longer a test. The people of Gaza is not going through a test right now. No, this is real shit. The people of Gaza will suffer. They've already been suffering. They've been starving to death. They've been getting slaughtered while receiving aid. Women and children have been, casualties of war with no care. Just collateral damage is not even considered. The Geneva Convention is not considered. If Benjamin Nosferatu, the small state of Israel, what perceivably very small amount of influence over the world, can get away with such atrocities, what can our own government get away with? What can other world leaders get away with? You ever notice we're supposed to have these adversarial relationships with these countries, but we have all these trade agreements with them? Like, particularly China. China and the U.S. are not allies. So why is there so much trade between the two countries? Why do we borrow so much money? Why do we owe China so much money? Why do we receive so many products from China? Why is their GDP always higher than ours? But they are mortal enemies, right? And Israel are our allies. But what do we gain from Israel for being our ally? How does our relationship with Israel benefit the United States and the people of the United States? How does it benefit us? It doesn't. Realize says, yes, it was 70% of the population took that mess. Yes, Chicago is testing ground. Yes. See, DC wasn't really a testing ground, right? It was. It kind of was. They started in DC. But there was less anybody could do about it in DC because DC is a federal district. It's not its own state, right? And so that was much easier. Insane talk, NBA, NFL, boxing, and more. Salute to you. He says he got a theory about that. I don't know what Israel has on our leaders, but whatever it is big. Well, it's not really just about what they have on our leaders. It's that they control our leaders. If you really look at the big picture. If you look at the entertainment industry, which is a special interest group, they have a lot of influence over our government. If you look at the bankers, the banking system is ran by the small hats. Yeah, the small hats have a lot of influence on what goes on in this country. That's what we need to look at. Israel's trying to bring the Antichrist to life? Maybe, but in reality, They're just doing what any other power-hungry country wants to do. See, Israel wants to be a superpower. And you know what they need for that? They need land, they need resources, and they need influence. They have influence, well-hidden influence that they don't want us to know about. That's why when you say certain things, even if you say, oh, well, you know, the Jews own a lot of things. The Jews own this, the Jews own that, the Jews make a lot of money. That's why they call that anti-Semitism. If you point out the level of influence and wealth Jews have in the United States, they call that anti-Semitism. They don't want you to talk about that. Right? They don't want you to talk about how much power they have. It is a Zionist system, right? Zionism dictates that, you know, those that are in power do not make it known that they're in power, because it would hinder, it would impede on their power, right? Because people would resist. They would know who to point to as the real tyrants. They would know who to point to. Well, if you don't know who to point to, if you think it's the left or the right, if you think it's the Republican or the Democrats, if you think it's the president, if you think it's the blah, 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 if you think it's the government, okay, so you're going to be looking at the government. But see, what the government does, it creates it creates this division amongst the people, because they have convinced you that the left and the right are separate entities. Well, how many Congresses are there? Think about that. So, well, there are two Congress, right? There are two systems of Congress, right? You got the Senate and you got the House. They're all Congress, just so y'all know. They call the House Congress. They call the representatives of the House congressmen, but senators are also considered. It's all one Congress, and you just got, it's divided between the Senate and the House of Representatives. So you got the Senate and the House of Representatives, right? They're just two different tiers of the same system. But they want to convince you that within the House of Congress, there are two separate entities that exist and work against each other. They work against each other to represent you. That's what they want you to believe, right? So they come up with these two different ideologies, right? They know what the overarching ideologies are within this country. They know they're these so-called liberals and these so-called conservatives. They understand it. They understand those two separate ideologies that exist within this country. So they have created a system where, listen, your group will represent the liberals, right? You guys will rally the liberals, and you guys will rally the conservatives, right? And we will convince the constituents that, well, the liberals and the conservatives have opposing interests, and we'll play on that. We'll play on these so-called opposing interests, and we'll drive this wedge here amongst the people. But we're not divided. We're not divided in the House. We're not divided in the Senate. We're just going to convince you guys we are, so that it can trickle down to y'all. Well, this country would not operate as it does in a two-party system in reality. It wouldn't work. Not for the people. It works for it works for the government to control. But in reality, they don't look at each other that way up there. And let's say you're a fresh congressperson. You think that, okay, you're running for Congress, you're running for Senate, and you think you go get in there and make some changes. And when you get in there, you find out, man, you got a role to play. You have a role to play. You have a role to play, and you're going to play your role, or you're going to get shut out. You're going to get what they call it, censored. Batman says Israel trying to bring the Antichrist to life. Man, they're trying to be a world power. They're trying to be a world power, and they want the land of Arabia to be the land of Israel. And so that's what they're doing. I don't know about antichrists. Insane talk, NBA, NFL bosses says all you had to do is follow the money. Yeah. Exactly. They're colleagues and coworkers. They work together to extort you. They work together to hold sway over you. They work together to create these laws that they say you have to follow. Right? So they create these laws that will strip you of your rights to keep and bear arms, to strip you of your rights to the free speech, to strip you of your rights to privacy, to strip you of your rights to medical autonomy. And that's what you saw during the Modelo 19 pandemic. They exercised their power to strip you of your medical autonomy, your bodily autonomy, by trying to force face flags, force you to wear face flags, force you to stay in the house, to force you to keep this six foot separation, which is arbitrary and had no basis in science. Oh, for sure. All right, I will, Insane. That's right. I haven't seen you over there at BF channel. I thought he was calling you Insane Boxing Talk. Who is doing this? Well, the bankers, the corporations. The corporations, y'all. Understand. You know how they say there's 3 branches of government? There's really 5, including you got the legislative branch, the judicial branch, the executive branch. You got the branch of propaganda, which is the media, and then you got the special interest groups. And over in Israel, they don't bother with all that shit, right? Because the reason they get away with what they get away with is because they're not founded on the Constitution like this country is. They just get to do what they want. They get to just, go ahead and commit these atrocities, right? And they get billions of dollars from us each year to do what they need to do. To not have homeless, to have this free healthcare that you guys say you want so badly, when we know healthcare is not free, right? Somebody's paying for it. The taxpayers are paying for it. We paying for it out of our pocket. And we know it's fucked up. Yeah. Mama Thick Thigh says JP Morgan, BlackRock, etc. Exactly. Bilderberg, all these corporations. Yeah, that's just what it is. There was a Rockefeller, he once said, every vote is a vote for us. And Rockefeller was essentially a money man, a corporatist, right? He didn't have to be in government. He didn't have to be a representative. He didn't have to be a president. He had to be a goddamn thing. But a wealthy white man who just paid these people in government to do what he wanted them to do. Realize says freedom, they own the same team playing their hands behind closed doors and laughing at their asses all the way to the bank. Yeah. And how does Israel play into this? Do you guys know that Israel is responsible for the cybersecurity of this country? They have a back door to our cybersecurity. Not that in all the Five Eyes, not just this country, the Five Eyes. The Five Eyes countries, you heard of them? Well, Israel provides the cybersecurity for the Five Eyes, including the United States. Do you understand? Insane Talk says they said the Rockefellers found in Israel. That's why the United States. Yeah. I'm trying to tell y'all. Look at the corporatists. Look at the bankers. They're all small hats. Not all of them. But for the most part, they are. Remember when Kanye West got in trouble with the small hats? And he was reading off a list of just in the entertainment industry, right? They got mad at him because he said Israel or the small hats control Hollywood and control the entertainment industry. And so he started reading off all the CEO names and all that, and they were freaking small hats. These are not lies we're telling. That's not anti-Semitism, that's truth. And do y'all understand that Palestinians are also Semites? Iraqis are Semites. People from Afghanistan are, well, barely, Semites. Syrians are Semites. Not just the small hats, not just the Israelis. They're all Semites. Look up the definition of Semite. But they have co-opted the term Semite. I don't know why. I don't know why they don't just say anti-Jew. Mama Thick Thigh says, look in the Rothschilds family and notice the correlation in history. Oh yeah, the Rothschilds, all of them. Freedom, there's a magazine called The Economist 2012 Rough Guide to Hell shows Israel ain't real and Hamas flying in the glider. Oh, I'm gonna look into that. 2012, that's crazy. Rockefeller funded medical schools back in the day. They knew treatments make more than cures. Yeah. Yes. Ashkenazi Jews. Yeah. Well, yeah. So, matter of fact, let me rich y'all up, man. Realize. Insane. I'm familiar. Do you know? And it's, look, Israel is about to take over the entire. Palestine is not going to be, is no longer going to exist. And Donald Trump is essentially ensuring that that's going to happen. And I won't just say Donald Trump, but the United States. That what resistance is there to this? It make you think Hitler was wrong. Yeah. There's a huge difference between anti-Semitism and being anti-Zionist. I agree with that, L. If you're anti-Zionist, there's a problem, right? They don't want you to be anti-Zionist. That's what the problem is. They don't want you to expose the Zionism. Has nothing to do with Semitism. That's why they don't like it when you talk about how much power they have, how much influence and control they have. They want to hide that. George Patton said it best himself. I fear that in due time that we may have fought the wrong enemy. Oh yeah. Just like we're fighting the wrong enemy today. We're constantly on this left versus right thing. It's always like that, right? I mean, because how else could they keep us occupied? How else could they keep us going to these voting polls and wasting our time standing in these lines on Tuesdays? Hey, let me ask y'all something. How come voting day, how come election day isn't a holiday? Story B Man says the 5 eyes, Israel got them pegged. Exactly. Right in their brown eyes. Exactly. We have handed over the security of our nation, the cybersecurity of our nation, to Israel. Do you guys remember those infrastructure attacks a few years ago that no one wants to talk about anymore? That we had right here on the United States soil, and they tried to blame it on the Soviet Union, Russian. Still getting over from last week, over my little Modelo 19 I had. You know how we got hit with multiple cybersecurity attacks? You know how all these chicken farms and all that shit blew up? Got set on fire all of a sudden out of nowhere? The explosion down there in Georgia at the chemical plant? that I had to drive by when I was working in Georgia. All these different things. Everything is tied to a digital network. Everything that all the infrastructure shit, you know, working in the electrical industry, all this shit is digitized. Even with the old system that they use, right? The old power plants, they upgrade and retrofit these things so it can be ran digitally. So it can be ran through a computer. Realize says Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Warburgs, Demichi, Goodman, Sachs, Kennedys, yep. All and that's the 13 families. Yeah, they don't want to talk about 13 families. It starts sounding like a nut basket when you start talking about that. Mama Thick Thigh said the sand city of our country is damned when the Federal Reserve Act became a thing. Yes, the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 is when the banking systems started taking control of this country. Right? The Federal Reserve Act that I talked about before, the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. Yes. When did the Titanic go down? I forgot. What year was that? When did the Titanic go down? And who was on the Titanic? Just a question for y'all. Because I forget. Who was on the Titanic when it went down? Yes, they took over and started the second constitution. Yes. And then after that, what did they start doing? When the money stopped being backed by gold, that's when we really got fucked. Yes, realize. 1912, yes. Who was on the Titanic? Because, see, they knew this Federal Reserve Act thing was going to come up. And there were people that didn't want it. There were bankers and whatnot and other individuals that did not want to have that happen. And they were, guess where? They were on that Titanic. Digital War says, yes, the petrodollar, but why did they have to push it? They had to push the petrodollar, which really, when the gold standard, when we got off the gold standard, it was during the Vietnam War, right? It was a little bit after that started. And we actually used to house the gold of many other countries in Fort Knox. Well, when these countries started to see that we were spending all this money on this war, they were like, where the fuck hold on, killer. Where are you getting all this money from for this war? Guess what they did? They came and got the gold back, didn't they? We didn't have enough. So we got off the gold standard and went to fiat currency. And of course, we got tied with OPEC with the petrodollar. So now you got to, if you want to get oil from OPEC, you got to use the you got to convert your shit to the American dollar. And boom, there you go. That's the petrodollar. That is what makes our currency strong. Allegedly, it's not really strong, right? It gives it an appearance of strength because of the petrodollar exchange. Storm B-Man says the Titanic never went down. It was a ship designed to look like it and a host of powerful, wealthy moguls on that boat. They never made it, however, the privateering did. Yes. Yes, exactly. But see, all this shit sound like conspiracy theories, but they're fucking facts. Steph Brown, salute to you. These are facts, man, y'all. And then we had the fucking Federal Reserve Act. Yes, there were wealthy people on that ship that did not want the Federal Reserve Act to take place. They did not want that to pass. They resisted it. And it wasn't necessarily altruistic, no. Because they understood it would put constraints on their own wealth. Gold, having money backed by something of actual substance, a natural a resource A finite resource is the only way this whole shit does not happen. And of course, when you talk about the small hats, right? They have been going through and setting up influence in all these countries, right? For centuries, because they didn't necessarily have a homeland, right? So they spread themselves out to all these different countries and got into positions of influence and positions of wealth to control certain things. And they operated from this mindset of, we're going to have our homeland and we are no longer going to hide our level of power. And that's what they're working on now. They're in the end phase. That's why they're going to invade Gaza. And it's not going to stop with Gaza, y'all. It's not going to stop there. Radium Rickshaw says they took the gold from our heritage as black kings and queens. And guess who tried to give that gold back? And they had him slaughtered. They had him murdered in the streets of his own country when he dared to do so. Do y'all know who I'm talking about? They tried to get the gold back to Africa. Well, he did. He had a plan, and he understood where Africa really was. He knew it wasn't, he knew Africa. He knew that his own country was part of Africa, and he tried to form an African Union and use the gold dinar for trade. Get everybody back on gold in Africa. Realize says they say it was two identical ships. He knew it was damaged, and the Rockefellers got off last minute because those bankers didn't want to have nothing to do with them. Yeah. I mean, I don't know about the identical ships. I don't know about that. I haven't heard that one. But I do know that there were quite a few people on that ship that wanted to resist the Federal Reserve Act. They did not want it to take place, right? They wanted free market, a fair free market. They were essentially anarcho-capitalist, because the Rockefellers and them, they're capitalists, but they want their corporate welfare capitalist, right? And they wanted to have control over their currency. They wanted to have control over the credit. The Federal Reserve controls the credit of the United States people, right? They set the interest rates. They do this, they do that. They influence the market, right? Well, the free market capital, the anarcho-capitalist, well, they didn't want certain elite motherfuckers controlling the market. They wanted everybody to have an opportunity to capitalize on anything that they could. Who I was talking about that tried to get the gold back in Africa and keep it within Africa, because Africa, of course, is rich with gold. They tried to keep the gold within Africa. I'm talking about Muammar Gaddafi, the president of Libya, or the former president of Libya that they slaughtered in the street. And they just, it was completely humiliating. His own people took him out onto the street, shot him like a dog in the street, and dragged his body around and all this other shit. Of course, they tried to kill him in the 1980s. Ronald Reagan tried to have him killed. killed members of his family instead. But, what are you going to do? The same reason they killed Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden, because they didn't want to be influenced by the United States anymore. They were like, look, y'all doing too much. Sunshine says, right, it was a censorship. Those who had the money and the voice to stop the act were fooled into being on the ship. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know about the censorship, but yeah, I knew that. Realize says there are no longer conspiracy theories. Yes, it's fact. After JFK, after past the American people demanded what happened to him. So the world conspiracy theory was created by the yes, they created the word conspiracy theory to make people like us sound like nut baskets when we actually try to connect the dots and use common sense and use through logic to get from one place to another. It is what it is. Stormy B Man says the greatest lie ever proven to man is that to acknowledge the devil's presence. The lies are told and deception happens directly in front of your face. Absolutely. Yes, digital warrior, Gaddafi. Yes, please hit the like button, y'all. Yes, he was going to use gold dinar to trade amongst the African Union, and they could not have that. So of course, you know, Clinton and Obama and them, you know, and they just taking orders, right? These are figureheads we're talking about. When I talk about these people, just like Madeleine Albright was a figurehead who carried out the orders, right? When she said, and then she went up on 60 Minutes and told the world that killing 500,000 children was worth what they did in the first Iraq war. Yeah, it was worth killing 500. Yes, the slaughter of 500,000 children was worth achieving what they wanted to achieve in the first Iraqi war. Stormy B Man says the next act of deception on the Titanic level was Pearl Harbor. Yes, they knew Pearl Harbor was going to happen. Then 9/11 and the mysterious building that toppled. Yes, Building 7. How did Building 7 fall? It was not touched, but it fell anyway. It fell into its own footprint. See, this is what I'm talking about. But we sound crazy when we say that. We sound crazy when we say, "Hey, man, why did Building 7 fall in the World Trade Center when it wasn't even struck by an airplane? How did it fall?" There was a guy. He passed away, a black dude. He did an interview where he was on Tower 7 and he heard these explosions. And then somebody helped him get out of a window and he got away. And he was talking about how he heard these explosions, the secondary and tertiary explosions that shook the ground, that shook the whole building before it fell, and he got out just in time. Yeah, he died shortly after that. Yes, Pearl Harbor was indeed what essentially got us into World War II, and they wanted us in that. Muammar Gaddafi, may he rest in peace. Yes. Salute to Trey Titan. Salute to you, brother. It's always now or never. Trey Titan. It's all Gaddafi. He had so much good for his country: free education, free healthcare, and a vibrant and thriving economy. And his security team, his security team was bad too. All them young ladies in the security team, and they were really like, his security team was on it. Do I know anything about King Solomon's gold? It's a biblical thing, right? Natalie says, while they did that, he screamed, "Why are you doing this?" Yes, that's exactly what Gaddafi was saying. Well, the illustrious, benevolent United States government convinced them that he was bad, just like they convinced them that Saddam Hussein was gassing his own people. Remember that? Oh, he's gassing his own people. Weapons of mass destruction, all this bullshit. Did he try to fuck with Kuwait? Sure. I mean, but that's their shit. That's their business. But of course, it was to our benefit to assist Kuwait and get into this first war. Right? Of course. But then when it came to, 10 years later when we invaded Iraq, first it was, he's harboring Osama bin Laden. And then it became, it's weapons of mass destruction. And then it became, Oh, we got to free the Iraqi people from his tyranny. Well, why wasn't that the first thing? This is what they do, y'all. And then they told you that they lied about the weapons of mass destruction. They lied about it. Yes, Obama did. Yes, Obama was responsible, of course, on the face of it, right? But really, it was the bankers, because every war is a banker war. Realize says, Google it. The Titanic had identical ships. I'll look at it. The RMS Olympic and the HMHS Britannic. I'll look it up. Yes, the central banking system. The central banking system that told y'all that they did not like Bitcoin, but they love Bitcoin. They told y'all that Bitcoin was too hard to trace. It's digital money, y'all. Listen, just understand, cash is king. There's nothing more untraceable than cash. Nothing. So be careful with that Bitcoin. Cash out if y'all got it, in my opinion. I never bought Boy, if I had Bitcoin back in the day, when I could have bought some Bitcoin when it was like $1 a piece or 50 cents. You know, people was, oh, buy it. Just buy it up and put it on your hard drive. You had to put it on a hard drive and all this other shit. I didn't bother with it. But if I had and it blew up like it did, I would have cashed out immediately. Because, listen, just, anyway. I'm not going to tell y'all, give y'all no financial advice. Crime was less than 1% like Wakanda. That's funny. Yeah. Muammar Gaddafi may have been arrogant, and he did not allow the government of the United States to push him around. That's why they tried to kill him in the 1980s, and they killed his family. Because they tried to bomb a compound. He had body doubles and all kind of shit. Well, they saw the body double, and they thought that it was him at his compound, and it really wasn't. They tried to kill him. That was ordered by Reagan, Ronald Reagan. So, I mean, we understand that. Muammar Gaddafi has always been on the shit list, just like Osama bin Laden. And because you know, bin Laden used to do business with the Bushes. They all did business together. They all, yes, for the opium and all that shit and all that in the poppy fields and all that other shit. They did business with the bin Ladens. Jay with open eyes, salute to you, brother. He said, then you had the Pentagon get destroyed and anniversary started for it in LOL. Most Americans still don't know that 20-some years later. No, they don't. They don't understand when that money went missing. And who was it, Donald Rumsfeld, or who was that talked about the trillions of dollars that was missing from the Pentagon right before 9/11 happened? What's his name? Somebody got mad at me because I said the wrong guy. I said Dick Cheney instead of Donald Rumsfeld, and they got mad, and they, whatever, it is what it is. You cannot control a plane that large, that low. It would stall. Plus, plane fuel does not burn, and it would. What about explosions that were seen right before the buildings went down, like a controlled demolition? Yeah. But even now, like when you look at it, people still don't. They're like, oh well, it don't make no sense. Oh yeah, I said Dick Cheney. They're all on the same fucking team, y'all. Bush, Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld. They were all like they were all the same. They're all the same fucking people. Not the same people, but they was all rocking together. But of course, they had to try to derail the conversation, talking about it wasn't Dick Cheney, it was Donald Rumsfeld. Okay, I said the wrong motherfucker. Okay, they'll say Obama, like Abomination, is the Antichrist because he's the only president to wear a black suit. I truly think they are allowing people to build it, then turn them off like a switch. Sunshine says, I learned a lot about planes when I was a kid working for McDonnell Douglas. Oh, that's what's up. No plane that large can fly that low, and still be controlled. No, that makes sense, unless you're landing, right? Realize says Obama is kin to George Bush, Dick Cheney, and Brad Pitt. They all in the same bloodline. I've heard that, yes. Jake Bugossi says, the reason why I mentioned King Solomon's gold is because it's all connected. Okay. Well, we know gold is important. Now, back in the day, did it have any practical industrial use? No, it did not. Now it does. It's a conductor of electricity. You can do a lot of shit with gold. The purpose behind gold is to understand that it's a finite resource, right? And it takes place of the value you have, right? So it's a placeholder for value, and you use it to buy stuff. So, you know, you might get a goat for a piece of gold, or you might give a piece of gold for a goat. The guy takes the gold, right? It represents the value of the goat itself. You go buy some milk, they can take that gold and go buy a goat. That's the whole point, right? It's not because it has intrinsic value. The value placed on gold is the fact that it's a finite resource. It represents what you already have or your worth, right? Whether it be in the form of labor, right? So you get a certain amount of gold or silver pieces for your labor. So you take those that gold and that silver, and you take it to somebody. You go to a general store. They understand that gold and silver is a finite resource, and you worked your ass off to get it. Somehow you got this gold and silver. It took you some work. It took work. It's not something you can print out. You have to go get it. You got to either dig it out of a mine, or you work to get it, or you rob somebody. However you got it, it has value. And you keep using it. You put it in rotation to get the things you want. And everybody shares in the wealth of that. That's the whole point of using, not even necessarily gold, whatever you have that's a finite resource. Something that you know, okay, I can't just keep printing it and printing it and printing it. They don't even need to print money anymore. Or exactly, Story B Man, or you bend the knee. You bend the knee for it. Either way, you're providing a service or a good for that gold. That gold or that silver or that bottle of milk or that goat or that side of beef, it all represents time and laboring energies that you use to receive it. So even the butcher might get a cow. The butcher has to work to cut and carve and butcher the cow into pieces and process it. It takes work. It takes time. Boom. You produce the cuts of beef for it. All right. So what do I get for it? Well, here, you can give me some gold. I can take that gold and take it to somebody else that can give me something of value. Well, with fiat currency, they don't even have to print money anymore. They can just put ones and zeros in a computer. Here, they just put ones and zeros. There's no value in that. Sunshine says a live call came into the major news stream. The caller reported seeing a fighter plane sparked something, and it looked like a missile. And she said that seconds later heard an explosion at the Pentagon. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the video feeds that show the area, I think it's from a gas station across from the Pentagon, you can see something flashing by, right, real fast, and it wasn't a jumbo jet, right? It was something else. And then the way it struck the Pentagon, it went through multiple layers, left a perfect size hole, multiple layers through the reinforced steel concrete walls of the Pentagon, right where the records were kept about where that money was, the money that was missing. I mean, listen, this is the reality of what happened. Realize says, I met a man from last year from Africa. He was visiting Miami. He got out barefoot and asked, why you out here with no shoes? He said, this is what I do in the country. And the country was Africa, part 1. That's what's up. I mean, grounding, right? There's a benefit to walking barefoot outside in nature. You know, I wouldn't do it on a dirty, nasty street walk. or a street sidewalk or something like that. But I put my feet in the grass. Sunshine says, why were there so many cameras focused on 2 buildings that morning from both the ground and the air? How did they know to be filming? Yeah. And then who was that? There was a newscaster that said Tower 2 just fell 30 minutes before it fell. Y'all remember that? Listen. Tower 2 fell, and it didn't even fall yet. It fell like sometime later, like I think it was, I want to say 2 hours. And that he couldn't have mistaken it for Tower 1, because Tower 1 had already fallen when he said that. For it'd been quite a minute. It is what it is, y'all. I'm gonna get on out of here. But understand what Israel is doing is they're invading Gaza because they want to expand the nation of Israel, because they feel like they're entitled to it, and they're not going to stop at Gaza. They're going to continue to expand. They're going to continue to go out. They're going to say, "Oh, look at all these enemies we have around us. They're attacking us from all sides. We need to do something about it." So the idea is they're going to expand their empire across the entire Middle East. That's the agenda. Read Operation Northwoods, written back in the 50s. I will. Operation Northwoods. Emmanuel says the United States military refers to Israel as their clients. I'm not surprised by that. Revelation in action. Yes, Natalie. But think about it. Right? I told y'all when this first happened that they were going to attack Iran. I told y'all that they were going to listen. You can see the writing on the wall. Israel is not going to stop at Palestine. The reason this is important to everyone here and everyone in the world is because, think about it. If Israel, who is not considered to be a superpower, can do this and get away with it, they can just shit on the Geneva Convention. They can just disregard it, dismiss it. They don't, without any consequences. They can be declared war criminals by the world courts, but no arrest be made. Just like they won't arrest Putin, they're not going to arrest Benjamin Nosferatu. They're all war criminals. They're not going to do anything about it. Just like Russia. Russia wants to take over the Ukraine. Probably not going to happen because they're getting so much resistance from all these NATO nations. Well, Israel has the excuse of, they have the reasoning and the logic of, look, Hamas came into our country and slaughtered a bunch of people, killed 200 something people or 1,500 people, whatever it was, and kidnapped 200 something more. Doesn't matter if we knew it could have prevented it. The fact that they did it is the justification. So, but imagine, do you think they'd really need justification if October 7th never happened and they just say, you know what, we're getting tired of Hamas threats and all that? They could have done it without that, man. The reason they needed October 7th was not for the world leaders' approval. It's so that the people would have less resistance, right? But at this point in time now, it's been 2 years. We understand they're not interested in releasing getting hostages released. They're not interested in any of that. They're not interested in any peace talks. They're not interested in a treaty. They're not interested they're not interested in a ceasefire without Hamas surrendering Gaza. That's what they're interested in. Well, Hamas is not going to do that, so they're going to launch a full-scale invasion into Gaza, and anybody within Gaza that's there, they're going to kill them. I wouldn't say the objective is to kill a bunch of people. The objective is to expand territory, and if they got to kill people to do it, they will. Radiant Rickshaw says Israel belongs to the black man. If our empire needs to be expanded, we'll expand it to the ends of the world. Okay. Why are you interested in expanding an empire? Mama Thick Thigh says, I wish it were possible to denounce our social security numbers and not have repercussions for killing our strawmans. Well, the first step is to become completely self-sufficient. Completely self-sufficient. And you won't need to denounce it. You just won't need to use it. You won't need to, you won't need to worry about social security number. The only thing you have to contend with at that point, once you become self-sufficient, is overcoming eminent domain. Now, we do have people out there, they are exercising their sovereign citizen stuff. They're doing all the paperwork and all this good stuff. But at the end of the day, you're no more than a nuisance to the government. And if you're a sovereign citizen and you don't have your own land and your land isn't sovereign, you don't have sovereign land that the government does not have eminent domain over or any jurisdiction over, that's when it really matters. Is your land sovereign? Are you a completely separate nation? Do you have land that's a completely separate nation in and of itself? Or do you pay property tax? Or if somehow you manage to get rid of property tax with the sovereign citizen stuff, at the end of the day, if they wanted to take your shit, they'll take it if you're not ready to defend it and if you're not self-sufficient. Sunshine says same thing was done to Paul Walker in that car. The car was clearly struck by a powerful beam of missile. Multiple cameras caught the attack. Paul and the driver were running for their lives. Man, I need to look into that. Movie about his character in the same red Porsche that was about the Skull and Bones. What movie you talking about, Jay? Well, Mama Thick Thighs, if you have the driver's license already, once you get your driver's license, right? And just like you can't get a job without a driver's license, without a social security card and a driver's license, right? So once you have that social security card, it is what it is. I think now I was kind of interested in the sovereign citizen stuff, but when I discovered what you really had to do to be sovereign in reality, I was like, well, I'm not going to worry about that right now. The fact is, once you have your driver's license, you have your driver's license. You just got to renew your driver's license. So if you have a social security card, but you need a driver's license, then you might as well not worry about not needing a social security card. You get what I'm saying? Yes. You have to be completely self-sufficient. And you also have to be completely off-grid, completely cut off from government to never need any of that. You have to not need a job, right? What does that mean? That means you have land. You have land with groundwater that's readily accessible. You have access to fishing and hunting. You can just live your life. You have to have the ability to use your hands and repair things, and you got to be self-sufficient or have people with you that can do those things. Paul Walker was an activist against child rings. Oh yeah, gotcha. As well as getting ready to public about those things. Sad, man. Yeah, I've heard about things like that. K-Bar says you cannot use roads or water. That's what I'm saying. You got to be completely self-sufficient. Yes, you have to be like the Amish. And look, the Amish, they still do things. They sell stuff. They sell soap. They sell furniture. They sell milk to people that aren't Amish. So, I mean, even though they're self-sufficient, they can still get resources from others, right? Like you go to Amish furniture store and get some good furniture. You can get some. I get Amish made soap. That shit is fire. Do I remember? Well, I know that there is laws against water catchment and things like that in certain states and certain cities. Radiant Rickshaw says I'm interested in Black Power. Okay, I'm not mad at that. We own this planet, it's ours. The sovereign citizens are sucker. Yes, I do believe that sovereign citizens are suckers because they really think that they're sovereign and they're really not. Especially if you're using American road, if you're using roads. Straight guys, salute to you. I'm interested in self power of self. I'm interested in self empowerment. I'm not interested in having power over other individuals. That's where sometimes me and certain individuals differ in the Black Power community, because I'm not interested in controlling and governing and having power over anybody, especially another adult, right? I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in everybody being free individuals. Like, I'm interested in individual freedom, individual power, individual sovereignty before anything else. Now, if you want to exist within a community where there are individuals that have a certain level of leadership over the others it's voluntary, sure. Yes, it takes water to be self-sufficient. Yes. Radiant Rickshaw says, thank you for sharing your opinion. All good. So anyway, thank you guys for coming through. Thank you for hitting that like button. Thank you for sharing if you shared. I appreciate these conversations. I'm glad you guys engaged. And yeah, I'll be back at it, y'all, a little later on another topic. But anyway, y'all stay up, man. Understand what Israel's doing. Israel's not interested in peace talks. They're interested in expanding their empire and becoming a recognized superpower. That's what they're interested in. Anyway, much love. Like, share, subscribe. Y'all be safe. Stay fit. Stay moving. And we're going to keep marching forward toward freedom. Peace. God bless you.